Gary Vee describes it best. We're in the attention economy right now, and there's only so many screens that we can watch at the same time, right? The days of watching the news after dinner 6 to 7 is just gone. Like it's no longer required or habitual for so many people. And you're absolutely right. It's been replaced by what is more relevant to me. I think there's a dilution that can happen if you're getting all these sources from all these information. Find what you want to give your attention to, because that is the next economy. It's how much attention can we get?
Hello, I am John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us, they say, oh, we know where Canada is, in British Columbia on the West Coast. Right. Well, we are in Prince George, 500 miles north or 800 kilometers north of Vancouver. Today we've got a very, very interesting guest. His name is Cam Bodwin, and he is a leader of stages most people even don't know exist, as the founder of the Frequent Speaker. He runs he runs a booking agency that gets authors, coaches, entrepreneurs consistently in front of audiences that grow their brand and their bottom line. And he is also the founder of the Frequent Speaker. Cam, welcome to the show.
John, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So tell us about you and your background, and obviously the topic is very, very interesting to me because I'm a presenter, speaker, and in demand as well, and I'm an author. I'm working on my 6th book, and so all of that communication, and then obviously I'm very active in podcasting as well on a global basis, and all of that I like, and it's all a form of communications. And the last book that I wrote, I'm going to show you the actual book that came out in July 31st, and it's already an in-demand speaker on Amazon, and is $1 billion communication skills. It's all about communication skills. And so that then being said, Cam, tell us about your background. Where did you start, and your background, your education, and what brought you to the Frequent Speaker, becoming the founder of the Frequent Speaker and that platform. And obviously you're very,
Sure.
very active, not only in North America, but in other places, I presume. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So my story kind of begins, I'm going to say it like at IBM, actually. So I was a software developer at IBM. And the first week I was there, they said, hey, Cam, what do you know about digital accessibility? I said, I don't even know what that is. Digital accessibility, for anyone who doesn't know, it's all about making technology usable by people with disabilities, so that, your banking website, the government websites that you use, or even just like Shopify, things like that, is usable if you're using assistive technology. Well, I kind of got really deep into that, and I got good at programming and making websites usable by people with disabilities. So IBM invited me, and they said, hey, why don't you train the rest of the team? Why don't you go and like speak around the office for this, and go and do that. So, a corporate trainer, teacher, coach, kind of like lunch and learn kind of guy is what I started doing. But I got the taste of public speaking then. And so IBM then said, well, hey, why don't you go and speak externally as well? Why don't we send you to conferences? And what that does, it does really well for the IBM brand, which we'll probably be coming back to at some point, because if you own a brand, if you are the founder or leader or executive of a company, it does really good for your company if you go out and start to brand build and start to show and demonstrate that you're not afraid to get in front of the public and answer questions or start to share your knowledge with the world. It actually does really, really good for your brand, but I digress. So I spoke on disability inclusion for about 7 years on behalf of IBM. They would send me out to different conferences, and I would go and speak as a result of that. I built a podcast myself. I only got to 91 episodes, though. I probably should have continued until I got to 100 just to say I got to 3 digits. But anyway, So I did that, and after about 7 years, I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to go and become a professional speaker externally. So I did, and I started getting paid to speak. But this is around the time of 2021, 2022, when things started to really change in the political environment, and the world of DEI started to shift a little bit. And I know there's many speakers out there who speak on DEI who are still struggling a little bit as a result of that. But I was a little bit unique, and I said, hey, you know what? Me as the able-bodied guy, I shouldn't be the one to share life stories about people with disabilities. That shouldn't be my role. So instead, I started to shift my focus more towards telling the story of people with disabilities. How can I amplify their voice? And I would do something called demo videos or build demo reels for speakers on disability. So I would go in and like promote them like that. And I still do that. I still do that to this day. So I shifted away from my focus on being the person on stage to supporting other speakers who go on stage or want to be on stage. So that's kind of where the story is right now. So I help speakers get on more stages through lead generation and video creation, kind of really amplifying their voice and trying to help them really share their voice with more people. Anyway, I'm sure going to get into more of that as the show goes on.
So, as we know that, and you know, and I know that public speaking in most cases is feared more than death.
Right. You'd rather be in the casket than behind the podium, right? As I think it's said.
And then the other one, if you speak about supporting speakers with disabilities, what are you referring to? Are that physical, mental? Does it include, mental diversities in some description or another? What are they? Who are they in particular that you focus on?
Yeah, all of the above, really. So I was invited to go speak more on the technology side, like how do you make this website accessible? Right. How do you make sure that this screen, this LCD panel, is usable by people with disabilities? How do you make sure the mobile app that we're developing is usable? We've gotten some really interesting conversations around that because, for example, you touched on mental disabilities or cognitive disabilities, as we call them, invisible disabilities. So especially for people with autism or ADHD in quite a few scenarios. How do we make an application more friendly for people like that, eliminating flashing icons or flashing screens, or people who are colorblind, making sure that the colors in the application, you're not only using red to indicate that there's a problem or an error, because if it's just red and someone who's colorblind may not be able to see that color. So they're not even going to know there's a big flashing error message. So things like making sure you use icons as well as that. So I would go in and help translate these specifics around how do you build sites and websites and technologies and tools to make them usable by the widest number of people possible.
So I'm a good case for you. I'm ADHD, I have dyslexia, and I'm colorblind. So just a little bit more about me. I'm 85 years young. Within the next month, actually, is my birthday. And I was born in Holland, northeastern part of Holland, in 1940. And I grew up speaking dialect in that part of Holland. And if I spoke dialect, which I love to do, the rest of Holland couldn't understand me. So when I was 17, I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force, and I had to learn to speak High Dutch. But I did it with an accent, and they say, oh, look at it, it's a farmer from up north. And then from that point forward, we were liberated by the Canadian Army during the Second World War. Is on April the 12th, 1945. And I was so impressed as a 5-year-old that my dream was to go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I did when I was 24 and went to British Columbia. And my other dream was to build a lumber mill. And so I had to then, when I left, with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, couldn't speak language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. I knew I wanted to go to British Columbia, and landed in Montreal, took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. Oh my God, that's a long way. Anyway, so then I came there, went to the immigration department, and I could speak English, so fortunately there was a German fellow I could speak some German, and I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George, 500 miles north, 800 kilometers. I did. And I came here, I can still see 60 years ago, actually, and I can still see where the Greyhound station where I arrived with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and then I counted my money at least 3 times, and so I had $25.47. But what I did have is attitude. I've always been inside of me. I've always been positive. Then the attitude, then passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. And work ethic. And even now today, attitude, passion, work ethic is my foundation. What will follow is success. And I'm still here, even at nearly 85. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed and I always think I'm late. And I still do that now. Yes, I did build my lumber mill and a lot of other things. So that's kind of my background. And then I had an immense fear of public speaking. Or not only public speaking, even to the extent that I already was successful in my businesses after I was here nearly for already 25, 30 years, I even then didn't do well speaking to more people than maybe 2 or 3 around my companies until somebody said to me, hey, John, come with me to a place called Toastmasters. I said, what's that? He said, well, it's about communication skills. I said, are they going to ask me questions? No. You just come down, sit, look at it, and see what you think. So I did. And I went down there, I sat down, and then in the middle of the meeting, somebody said, hey, John, tell us all about it. I said, oh, my God, I'll never go back here. But I did. I stayed there for 10 years, and I could have crawled out of there in the first 2 times that I went down there, but I worked my way through it, and it changed my life. And by then, from 1990, when I was 50, to 2000, when I was 60, I became a DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster, for those that are watching. And other people that are watching, and as you will explain it as well, what is Toastmasters all about? It's all around the world. There's probably 10, 20 million people that have gone there to different degrees. It's still in your community, yours meaning the people watching us. Just go to Google, and what is it about communication skills? What is communication skills all about? Is become a good speaker? No. Become a good listener, first and foremost, and secondly, be able to speak on your feet, articulated. And then the third one is that then prepare presentations and then become a presenter of some sort or another, or learn about business presentations. But I went beyond that and then became a presenter. That changed my life. And then following that, I became an author, all as part of becoming a speaker. Now, the other part that I must add for you to get me into perspective is that was from 1990 to 2000. 10 years, I became the DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster. Of all the Toastmastering around, less than 1% of them go to the level of DTM. I did. And then in 1997, when I was already here for, nearly 32 years, I walked into a bookstore here in Prince George, and I picked up a book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. I had no idea what it was all about, and I don't know why I picked it up. This is the actual book I picked up, and I wrote into it January 1997. And what was it all about? ADHD and dyslexia. And the author, Dr. Hollowell, medical doctor, professor, ADHD, dyslexia, is probably best known around the world. This is one of his books. He wrote 18 books. And this book, in addition to Toastmasters, changed my life. Once I understood I was ADHD, and I wrote here in the book, after I was in 1997, when I was already 57 years old, is that I wrote in Dutch, how is it possible now I finally understand who I am? I wrote it in Dutch because I was ashamed of it, because of the stigma attached to it. The more I learned out about it, I found that it is a superpower. And I'm a speaker about it, I've written about it, and all those things. So it gives you a little bit of background about me.
You know what I love about your story is that it's a very similar story that I've heard with many people with both of those disabilities. You can call it ADHD and dyslexia, because, you know, we could even name out some pretty famous people. Sir Richard Branson.
Yeah.
He also has dyslexia, is also dyslexic and ADHD. Elon Musk, love him or hate him.
All in my book.
Yeah.
And the reason that they are successful, communication skills. And
because you are forced to, right? You are forced to as a result of.
Exactly. And so, but the superpower is that, so some people say to me, how do you do all these things that you do? You have 10 different companies, you write books, and you're one of the most active podcasts is you my podcast number 453, where I'm hosting, and I've been guesting on around another 200. And then we're approaching a million subscribers on YouTube globally, immensely powerful. And I'm just using that for illustration, coming from somebody that has ADHD and has dyslexia and couldn't speak the language when he got here, that everything is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Toastmasters just celebrated their 100th year as well. So they've been through a lot of experience. And I love the Toastmasters program. I haven't been in it personally, but I know many people who've gone through their program, and they only have great things to say, which is really interesting. And your story of the first day when everyone promises you, no, I won't, you're not going to talk today. Oh, actually you are. Like, that's part of the process, isn't it? Like, I've heard that a couple of times.
Yeah. So that to me became the foundation. And then, so what makes you unique is you became a speaker by coincidence that you got involved with IBM, that kind of indirectly exposed you to having to do this as part of your job. And then obviously you had a sense of comfort already that you made you do it, because you are a very effective communicator. Not all people are, and it's one of the critical areas to acquire in some form of fashion. And then from there and in, that brings you forward.
Yeah, well, I think that I think getting up on stage, just in general, right? Like, where does it come from? A lot of people are serving their younger selves in terms of, I love being in the spotlight. And that's not a negative. That's not a negative at all. I just meet many, many speakers who are saying, I just love being on stage because I love being the center of attention. And it's this little bit of flair, a little bit of drama, a little bit of look at me. But then there's this whole thread of, I am the expert. And when you're up on stage, when there's, 100 eyes looking at you, they are giving you authority. And I think you owe it to the people who are listening to build that skill. And you're talking about communication quite a lot here. And I think it's all part and parcel of the same thing. What a wonderful way to practice the removal of ums and ahs when you have an audience. And that was my initial reason to going into courses around speaking and trying to develop that craft. Is I hated whenever I would listen to myself on a podcast and half of my vernacular was and I said, the only way I'm going to get rid of this is by bettering myself on stage, bettering myself in front of an audience. And I took courses on it. And you know what? By the way, if anyone wants a hack on how to get rid of ums and ahs, slow down. Just pause. If you can just pause instead, giving yourself breath, giving yourself a bit of space while you're answering a question makes you sound smarter. And so you can do that very easily in communication, and also just know your topic a little bit better.
I like that. Sorry interrupting you. I like that, Cam, because it's very, I'm going to get Scott to bring me a fork or a spoon. So they, just to kind of illustrate what they do at Toastmasters, is that he's looking for one now. Anything that I can, anything that has, Scott is looking all over the place for the fork. So I just want to illustrate it. So you and me are speaking, and so...
We don't have forks.
Oh, okay. So, oh, we don't have anything like that. Anyway, so there we go. And saying that, you heard that, right?
I did. Yep.
Toastmasters. So what they do during the meetings is that, so soon as you have one of those stop words, and so that reminds the person about that is not part of that is a skill set that you will learn.
Right.
To not include it. Some people do it all the time and more frequently, but it's
Right.
important, just like you said.
I found that listening back to my podcast episodes or any episode, I mean, many people cringe when they have to watch themselves back on stage, but I want you to put yourself in the shoes of if you were a top athlete or you want to become a top athlete. No athlete out there has never watched their own content to say, with the coaches, with the team said, hey, this play here wasn't done properly. Come back and next time you're going to do this. And you have to treat speaking just like every other skill in life, like how, what level do you want to attain? Do you want mastery on this skill? And if so, then watching your replays is a critical part of that. And not only that, you're going to listen for things like when you gave information when it wasn't necessary, when you spent too long on a topic, and you can kind of see people in the audience look down at their phones or kind of whatever, and maybe you can find areas where you need to pick up the pace a little bit when there's something you need to get through, but it's urgent. If you speed up your voice, you can start to raise tension a little bit, and if you slow down and you pause, you add gravitas. And that will all of a sudden start to put weight to the topic you're speaking about. And you can only do that by listening or getting a coach or somebody else to help you kind of work through that. And I think that's just part of mastery of this skill.
I agree 100%. Is saying that. Now, the other thing that I see about you, which is something that I had to acquire, is that because of ADHD, dyslexia, and all the other things, academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said to my parents, what are you going to do with this guy? And some people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So my dad was in lumber and my grandfather was a master carpenter. They say, let's send him to a furniture factory and make him a furniture maker. Because the teachers would say they can be hard on people and kids can be hard on other ones, is that saying, as usual on tests that we did, everybody, they rated from 1 to 10, and Peter had a 9, and then Anna had a 7 or an 8, and then this and that, and John, as usual, a 0. And saying that John will not really amount to much in life, and all of that kind of thing. And then, so at 12 and a half years old, I started in a furniture factory, and then, so worked in that until I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force when I was 18 for 2 years. And then right after that, I knew that I was just as smart as all the others, and all the friends that would go to college and university, that I kind of lived in my own world, and I knew I would start over again with nothing. Hence the book, or the box with the 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, very little money, go to British Columbia, build a sawmill, and to prove to me, not to anybody else, that I could do it. And I did, and I'm still working on that as well, even still today. But then the things that changed my life is that Toastmasters, obviously meeting the Canadian Army, and then having the dream to go to the land of my heroes that liberated us. But the other one is then, going to Toastmasters changed my life. And then the other one, this one driven to distraction, and saying, oh my God, I didn't have a clue what it was, ADHD, dyslexia, no idea until then. And that kind of changed my life at the time that I was really 58 years old. And then it took me 5 years until I would go to my dog, who was a personal friend, delivered our 2 daughters. And the dog said to me, hey, John, why are you here? I said, I think I got ADHD. And he said, oh, yeah, let's check it out. And I do. And so And then from there and then my life started changing. My companies were more active. But the point that I'm making is this one, Cam, that I see in you is having self-confidence critically important. And I didn't have that to the extent that it was reducing my abilities really to, I question myself, who am I? Why am I different than all the others? Until I understood it, which was, can you imagine 12 and a half years old, becoming a laborer? I'm proud of that today. That served me well. Until I was 62, for 50 years, not understanding ADHD and dyslexia. And, for all those years, and then from there and then, knowing, understanding myself, becoming more active as a presenter, for one, but also in terms of starting to write books. The first one was Against All Odds. And from there and then, I wrote one about ADHD and a number of other ones. And another one that I did is that this one here, a picture of me actually, and so it changed my life. And so, but it would take 50 years to, and so my objective is to share with others that the next book that I'm writing is about you can. And that is probably my message more than anything, sharing with others, not only my story, but other than that, even under the worst of circumstances, growing up during the war years where we saw far too much that we shouldn't have, still affected by PTSD and a child, all those kind of things, and then going through all the difficult times, including then ending up in Canada, starting from nothing, going through, starting from the ground up as a cleanup man, on and on and on, and still believing that you can is so critically important.
Yeah, while working with people with disabilities, many times as part of my career, I had to interview, meet with, understand, get deeper into the understanding of people with disabilities, understand kind of the pain points or frustrations that they have with technology as well, and bringing it up on stage. And to put a little bit of a sidebar here, one of the reasons why I stopped being a speaker was because I kept getting asked, "Hey, can you share what it is to have a lived experience with a disability?" Or can I? And I kept coming up against this question, and my answer ultimately was no. And even when people were saying, "Can we pay you to go and speak to our audience about how do we cater more to people with disabilities?" I said, that's not my job. My job isn't to I can't be the able-bodied guy to go up and talk about lived experiences of other people. I need to go and you need to go and bring them up on stage so that they can share what it is to actually live in a wheelchair, or actually live with sight loss, or different cognitive disabilities. And that was a big part of why I chose to say, okay, the speaking life, what I've been speaking on is no longer serving me as part of what I needed to grow my brand. And that was a very conscious decision. And it's interesting. It was almost like saying goodbye to a piece of you, because I had to officially say, okay, I built a bit of notoriety, and people know me as a speaker on disability, and I had to say goodbye. I had to say that was it. I had to cut that off. Decision from the Latin word decadere. I don't remember, but it's to decide, to cut off, to remove, to trim, to prune, to completely eliminate. And that was something that consciously I had to be very specific about making. And I believe that was a good choice, because now I'm very free to be able to say, hey, if you need a speaker on disability, I've got a roster of speakers who may be better suited to serve you. But back to your point about ADHD and recognizing after a number of years that you had ADHD, and I'd be curious to know when you were identified as being dyslexic as well. But that was my story as well. I only realized 2 years ago that I said, maybe I should go get tested for ADHD as well. Many entrepreneurs do very well. Many entrepreneurs that have ADHD, and we do very well because we don't want to follow rules, or rules are are optional and timelines are, are optional. You said that you wake up at 5:30 every morning and you always feel you're late. Many people with ADHD feel the same thing. Time, it's called time imbalance or time dilation is wrong. And I feel the exact same thing. So I too, it was only through working with people with disabilities, people with ADHD, people with dyslexia that I started to identify, oh, maybe my son has ADHD and it's in the family usually. Well, my dad sure identifies as having ADHD as well. Maybe I've got it. So I went and got tested. It was the same thing for me. So, I mean, these are the things, this is the growth and how great it is now that we can actually have these conversations openly without being chastised or looked down upon, because it's just another facet of humanity. That's what it all comes down to.
And that's recently, Cam, because if I go back, that's why I wrote in Dutch, I wrote in here when I saw this book, now I know who I am. But I wrote it in Dutch because I'm at the same time I'm growing these businesses. I go to the bank to make proposals that include millions of dollars in investment, and saying at the end of the presentation, I say, oh, by the way, I have a mental disorder called ADHD, and say, have a nice day. So, and so, but the stigma was in my mind, but it took a long time. That was about 5-6 years ago. And then, so gradually, I become more public about it as it relates to me. Not saying, hurrah, hurrah, look at John. No, I have an obligation to speak about it. And that's, for me, not only giving presentations, like I still do presentations, but not as many as I can and would do, is because every time I do, coming from northern British Columbia, it takes me 2 days to go there, to make the presentation, get back into the routine. And I'm not saying that in some cases I do, if they are unique, and that it is in particular relating to some of the things that are close to my heart, ADHD, dyslexia, and those kind of issues. But I can do more effective work on, I believe, podcasting. And podcasting is something that I started on probably 5-6 years ago. I started to do blogging, interacting. Then I started working with local television stations. And then COVID came. We couldn't do that anymore. And then I had this apartment that I'm sitting in where I can see the Greyhound station there and behind me the city of Prince George, and say, well, let's turn that into a studio. And so we don't have to go someplace else where we cannot get in because of COVID. And so we started doing that. And then from there on in, we signed up with Podmatch. And that's probably 3 years ago or so. And now I'm podcasting regularly with top 1% globally, of podcasting. And it's an amazing, amazing platform. And it's only on its infancy. It's, and it allows me to, as we are sitting here, you and me interacting, we know already that I'm not bragging about it, but the facts are that probably millions of people will be watching us. How can you possibly get that type of an exposure in any other form? And so that's what I like about it, and that's why I'm so active in it.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing I find is interesting is many podcasters, YouTubers, authors, and business leaders, the executive team usually of any organization, speaking leads very well for those types of roles. Trainers, corporate trainers as well. Obviously, getting up on stage is very natural to them. That's a little bit of a no-brainer, but they usually don't have the decision-making power to be able to choose where they want to go speak to. So it's all about the same. The only thing that you can't get when you're up on stage is there's no edits, there's no retries. You're there for good, unless you're doing a live broadcast, then which is similar in the world of broadcasting. A podcaster or a YouTuber is usually pretty comfortable. If ever there's a little mistake in there, they can go and edit that out later. There's none of that when you're up on stage and exposed.
The interesting part about it, I like that what you say that, Cam, is because what I wanted to do with my podcasting is that, the podcast that I do we don't edit it. And they will be released within 2 hours after I give it. And if it includes I sneezed or something else, it's all part of the podcast. That's what it is. Right. And that to me is so important about it. And I know not many people do that, but in the 453, you're my 453rd one, that I don't think we have ever edited anything on it, other than at one point, at 100 or so, I was sitting here introducing my guest, and all of a sudden we had an earthquake and the building started shaking. And I said, oh my God, but unfortunately I didn't swear. And so we even left, and we said, should we edit it out? So I said, no, we leave it all in. It's all part of the podcast. And I believe that is unique about it. I like it. It is a challenge for me and to do it well. But at the same time, we release it within 2 hours.
Yeah, and I think that lends to the authenticity piece that is working so well now. With the advent of AI, we're so done with the over-edited, over-produced, looks a bit too soft, looks a bit too perfect kind of editing or producing. So that's what's working also in the world of social media as well. The more raw and walking on the street, just sharing your story, those are done. Those are crushing it right now. They're doing really, really well.
And then the other part of it, Cam, is that, if I look at the media, if it is CNN, ABC, CBS, and then in Canada, Canadian Broadcasting System, or worldwide, it is so loaded with commercials and so, in a lot of cases, politically oriented one way or the other, that they are losing listeners in my mind, and which they are, and that what is taking over a lot of that area is podcasters. And if you do it well and you're predictable and continuous, then that is the next, as you said earlier, it's only at its beginning now. It's opening up, so I can have you, I believe you are in the States someplace. I don't even know exactly where you are, but where are you?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, you're in Toronto, in Canada. Oh, my Canadian.
Fellow Canadian, don't worry. You don't.
No, I'm not against it. Yeah, I have friends on either side of the border, although I don't like some of the things that are going on. But that's a different story. So can you imagine, there we are sitting here, you're on one side of the country, and I'm on the other side of the country. But tomorrow I could have somebody from Athens or Philippines or from Russia. Not too many from Russia, actually. But, Eastern Europeans or... from around the world. It is amazing, and it's still on its infancy.
Yeah, that's and you're right to say it's just at its infancy. I mean, there's some podcasts out there making real money, like real money, and I think Gary Vee describes it best. We're in the attention economy right now, and there's only so many screens that we can watch at the same time, right? And so the news, I mean, like I will maybe listen to a 5-minute news quick thing to just hear about Air Canada's strike or ending of strike this morning, like little things like that. But the days of watching the news after dinner 6 to 7 is just gone. Like it's no longer required or habitual for so many people. And you're absolutely right. It's been replaced by what is more relevant to me. I only listen to one podcast. It's Alex Hormozi's podcast. It's really all I do, and I'm only listening to it on my bike ride to and from my son's daycare every single day, because otherwise, I think there's a dilution that can happen if you're getting all these sources from all these information. Find what you want to give your attention to, because that is the next economy. It's how much attention can we get, because that is finite, and we're nowhere near that limit yet. But soon to be, I think it's going to come.
So that then being said, Cam, is like in my case, I've been podcasting very regular. I'm raising my profile, John A. Brink, through my books, through my podcasting on the Brink podcasting, and so that's basically what I'm doing. And I'm not really making any money at it. That is not my objective. First and foremost is raising my profile. I do that through my books. I do that through the podcasting, and then the other one selectively doing presentations in other places. I hope to do a couple of presentations to universities in Holland in the early next year, likely. And so in broadening us to those kind of presentations in the future, and then being active in what I'm doing now. Does that make
you
sense
said
to
about
you?
raising your authority. I think that is brand building, right? You're trying to raise your brand, raise
Exactly.
your awareness, right? And
Yeah.
that's again going back to what I said before. That's why it lends itself so well. Speaking publicly lends itself so well to the podcasters and YouTubers and authors of the world, because you have something of value that you need to get out and share with the world. And
Right.
so, what I've seen is the speakers with the most success have built something. They've done something. They have experienced something, and that's really important to realize. I meet a lot of people who have a story, or they have spoken a little bit and they consider themselves professional speakers. They want to get out there and say, I'm a big speaker now. And really, unless you've done something of note, you're going to have a really hard time to break through the noise, because you're just like everybody else at that point. So one thing that I've noticed is that many speakers don't realize how long that runway is, because you need to build that brand first. And that brand can be of anything. So let me tell you the story of two speakers that'll reinforce this, that'll land this plane. Story one of a speaker is they were kind of like me. I worked at IBM. I had a bit of a story, and I would go out and share knowledge, just like share something I've read in a book or done a bit of experience on and gone to put that out there. I knew I had a cap on how much I could earn speaking. And well, we can talk about how much money you can make while speaking in a moment, but it is very lucrative. But I had a cap because I hadn't really built anything that's not in a textbook, or I hadn't really experienced anything. I just had a way of delivering it in a special and unique way. There's no way that I could have earned $20,000, $30,000 on speaking on my topic, not at least in one stage or from one stage. It would have had to be a training course, an ongoing program or something like that. Maybe a multi-day workshop or something like that. Definitely could have done it like that. But then there's somebody else. We're imagining the founders from Y Combinator or something like that. They've gone and built something. They have notoriety. They already have something that they can look at and say, I've done this first. And there's a lot of people who want to learn from that experience because it's big. They're already, quote, famous, right? I was just watching like a speaker who is an author as well, and he's charging $150,000 to go speak at an event because it costs that much. That's how much time or money it would cost him to take away from his business. And so brand building and authority building is such an important part of speaking because it really does elevate you. There's nothing like someone who wants to hire you and they see all these other eyes and all this other authority that someone else has given you, a really high quality recording that you've had done by South by Southwest or a TEDx talk, right? That is intrinsic value, that is intrinsic authority that is passed to you as the speaker, because it's kind of like why people who go to Harvard are hired more frequently, just because, Harvard has already vetted them. Well, if you have other logos, or if you have other like big logos on your website that you've gone and spoken at these events, well, that means they have already vetted you and given you authority. So that's a big part of speaking as well.
The other part about speaking that I find is that, is at this point in my life, and obviously through all the experience that I've had, the challenges I had, self-confidence, the lack of understanding myself in regards to ADHD, dyslexia, all the other kind of stuff, is that I'm never totally at ease when I'm doing a presentation, but I need to have that sense of anxiety for me to be good at what I do. So that's always part of me. Now, the other part about it that I know that when I do presentations, they may not remember what I said, but they will never forget seeing me on stage. I don't stand behind a lectern and just read off a piece of paper. I'm not good at dyslexia, doesn't allow me to be good at that. And so I float around, but they will never forget me. I know that part for sure.
Yeah, it's that old adage of they don't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you make them feel. That's
Exactly.
a big part of speaking. And the better you know your topic, and for you, for example, speaking about ADHD or dyslexia is natural to you. You can share lived experiences, and so that's another big part of what I see the professional speakers. And I use that term very lightly because I think that's changed now. Back in the 80s and 90s, that used to be a designation that was recognized. Oh, you are a professional speaker. You have your CSP, your certified speaker, certified professional speaker accreditation. And that just means so much less now because brand is an experience is higher valued now, which I believe it should be, because just because you have a designation doesn't mean that you are deserving of everybody's authority or giving everyone's attention, and this is kind of, I've seen it in the market now that people are devaluing these designations because they first off don't know what it is. It's not a big deal. They would much rather have a podcaster or a YouTuber who has 1 million followers come up on their stage because that brings more notoriety to that conference. I've seen that happen a lot more often than just because you have a designation or just because you're part of a training program or a team or something like that.
Now, the other part that I find, and I get excited about this, and especially talking to somebody like you, is saying that my foundation is attitude, passion, work ethic, and what will follow is success. I apply to all the things that I do, including presenting, and then in presentations in particular, the most effective presentation or the part of a presentation is pausing. And you alluded to that earlier, but I always believe that at the right, appropriate moment to pause and saying, there they sitting and saying, what's going to happen now? So that kind of a thing is very, very effective, and at least in presentations that I do.
Yeah, a good pause stops the pace of the audience because after a while, we're going to encounter, you get in a rhythm, right? And if the rhythm is like it's like a train, you hear that your rhythm going, and it's just going to go and chug along. And after a while, that sounds very monotonous. You must play with your intonation and your vocal, your inflection. You must learn stagecraft as well as a part of being a good presenter. And by the way, this applies if you are presenting internally to your team or speaking to your partner or sharing a story with a group of 6-year-olds. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because these are just base communication skills that can improve. And by the way, another podcaster, Roman Mars, who has a 99% Invisible, he had a great moment. We're talking about this on one of his podcasts. He has a very, very low baseline voice, and it's very monotone. But just because he can change the pacing of his podcast, he's gotten better over time, and he changes his pacing a lot, the speed, just in general, and that is his differentiator because he only has about a 1 octave range. I've never heard him get really excited and his voice goes up or anything like that. And you don't need to do a lot to make it interesting. So it matters.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So the other things, just looking at some of questions, what is the biggest myth people believe about getting booked as a speaker today?
That it's easy.
Yeah.
That it's easy. I think we all suffer from self-aggrandizing, things. Oh, I've been on 3 or 4 stages. All of a sudden I'm famous. And just this past weekend, I watched a video of how a speaker was trying to bring people into his audience. Okay. Yeah. And so he paid over $1 million in advertising, and live on his podcast this past weekend, there was over 40,000 people watching his webinar live. 40,000 people, and he spent over $1 million. Like, we have to understand the amount of advertising that you need to do to get on stage. And just because you've been on 4, 10, 20, 50 stages before, there's over a billion, over how many billions of people in the world. Like, nobody knows who you are. No. So we start to think that because we've been on a few stages and people start to recognize us, especially in our smaller communities. Like, if I'm a plumber and I'm a pipe cutting expert and I go speak to other plumbers about cutting pipes, well, then maybe in my plumbing community, I'm really, really well known. But as soon as I step outside that, maybe I want to go speak at a trades convention rather than just a plumbing convention. Nobody knows who you are. You are a nobody. And we have to be conscious about resetting that every single time. I help a lot of speakers, and many speakers come to me and they say, I don't want to take anything but paid stages. I don't even want to be considered for free stages. And usually the conversation ends right there. I choose not to work with people like that, just simply because if I were to put somebody, I'll use South by Southwest again, just because it's very well known. I love the audience. The audience is very good. It's all about thought leadership and there's music involved and stuff like that. But it's like a TEDx, but wider audience. And I tell people, okay, TEDx doesn't pay, South by Southwest doesn't pay, CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, they're not going to pay you. Or there's even a Dreamforce, which is the big Salesforce. I'm not sure if any of your audience is familiar with it. Dreamforce itself, they will charge you to be on their stage, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to be on the stage. Again, unless you're Jensen Huang or an Elon Musk or someone else out there that has a lot of notoriety, they're going to charge you to be on their stage. But what if you're in front of your ideal audience? Like, what if I could promise you that you go to this conference and you're going to be in front of 300 buyers, people who want to buy your software, bring you in to coach their teams, who want to give you funding? Like, that is worth money. That is worth building your brand in front of that audience. And with nothing more than a QR code at the end of your talk, you're going to be able to further conversations with these types of people. And I think that pays for itself in the long term. Like I said, the runway is long. So you've been on 5 stages, who cares? Even if you've made $50,000, you still have a lot to go. Because unless that phone is ringing off the hook and you are an inbound speaker, I mean, speaking is a really great job. And I say that very clearly. It is a job. Because unless you are working those phones and starting to pick up the call and building your brand with intent, unless you are a part of that 0.0001%, Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, some of these other really famous speakers, celebrity speakers, your phone's not ringing off the hook. It doesn't matter who you are. There's a lot of work involved in becoming famous.
Yeah. And work involved doesn't mean one step at a time. You have to build it gradually. So I want to give you one more element that is important in my life, is that I don't charge for presentations, and have no expectations of that's what I want to do. But the one thing that I do want to do is raise my profile, so that so that I get, especially things that are important to me. Talking about ADHD, dyslexia, and other things, and you can approach, and with my background, I believe is helpful. The other one was that everybody goes through periods in life that change their lives, and I already alluded to them. Obviously, the war years, then being liberated by Canadians, then going to Canada, then picking up the book Driven to Distraction and saying, oh my God, at nearly 60 years old, I'm ADHD, dyslexia, blah, blah, blah. And then the other one was, when I was 58 years old, I got a case of diverticulitis. And for those people that don't know what that is, I'm not a doc, obviously. If you have pain on your right side, they say maybe it's your, how do you call it? Appendix. And then on the left side is your colon. And they call that diverticulitis. And then you go to a doc and they give you, say, eat more greens, blah, 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 and all the other kind of things. In some cases, what happens? A rupture. In my case, I had a rupture. And so then the toxins go through your body, starting attacking the other organs. And you have a limited amount of time before it becomes very, very critical. So in my case, I had a high threshold for pain, but it's not good. And by the time I got to the doc, I was well over 48 hours. I got an operation and they cut 20 centimeters out of my colon. And the following morning, the doc said, you came that close. And so that gave me the signal. My wife is very much into healthy eating and is vegetarian, and I didn't listen quite as good as I could have. I was not abusive in terms of the things that I ate, but I was not doing all the things as well as I could have. Not going exercise, not eating. So I changed my life then and when I recovered from diverticulitis and I survived it, I decided to, up to that point in terms of the gym, I was just like everybody else. At the end of the year, you say, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and I'm going to buy a membership to the gym, and then 2 weeks later, you can find 100 reasons why you're too busy to go to the gym. And so I knew I had to change that. So I started to become 80-20 in terms of diet, becoming a vegetarian. I'm now probably 90-10, I would think. And then I went to the gym when I was 59 years old. And so in 1959. And so after I did that for 6 years, somebody came up to us, and I had a trainer, and somebody came up and said, hey, John, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? Really? Yeah. And I said, why not? Gives me a goal, right? So in 2017, 2018, I competed in Northern British Columbia. I was second in bodybuilding, third in physique, and then to the provincials became the same there. That qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And so then COVID came, and I'm still going to the gym. I'm still training after 16 years. This is a picture of me. Here I am. That's how I look today. I'm getting ready for competing again next year. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And
That's cool.
And then, and living young, dying old, I wrote a book about it, and saying how to be healthy even in fit in your mid-80s. And so that became very, very popular, and that means a lot to me. So, and I still do that today, is, the health, fitness, and is critically important, mentally as well. So that's why I like podcasting. It's always a challenge. The other one is, after this, I'll go to the gym, and then I'm always very, very careful about diet. I like to get 7 to 9 hours sleep a night. I'm very careful about my breakfast. In midday, I usually have, when I get finished in the gym, I have a protein drink with double protein, as that's my lunch. And in the evening, I have more substantial stuff that builds my condition. And so that's what I do. And, and I enjoy it.
That's cool. That's really cool. Congrats on that. It's cool to hear that you're still competing.
So Cam, we need to do more of this because, we really finished the hour already pretty much. We will release it in 2 hours, as I said, as we interviewed it. And then for all those people watching us from around the world, if you like what we are doing and all the different podcasting that we do, subscribe to us. Like it, share it with others, and comment on it. And also, Cam, do you have a contact that people can watch what you're doing and what you have available to us as presenters, or as in your book? Have you got a copy of your book here?
Well, actually, so I don't have a book yet. That's in progress right now. But the best place for people to contact me is just go to thefrequentspeaker.com, and I've got some little handouts and things on if you're looking to become a speaker. And if you go to thefrequentspeaker.com/onthebrink, I've actually created the URL already, and you can just go there. I've got cold email scripts on how to go and get on stages. I've got access to some leads on where to find databases of speaking events that you might be relevant to, and picking a niche, which is so important in speaking, especially if you're just getting started. I've met so many speakers who don't know who they speak to or whose lives they want to change. And there's this attitude of, I want to help everybody with everything. And it just doesn't work, just like your product doesn't really sell to everybody. So there's tips on how to build your niche in there as well. So thefrequentspeaker.com/onthebrink, and you can go and find all the resources there.
And then for my johnabrink.com, you can see all the things that I do. And also, Cam, look at me, and after this podcast, give me some advice and say, hey, John, this is what I like about it. This is the other one. And maybe you can consult me as to where do I go from here and what will it look like. And then maybe in the next 6 months or 8 months or so, we'll do another podcast if
Yeah,
you
that'd be
want
cool.
to.
And what I can do is I can send you a video and maybe we could show that to the audience as well, because that would be a great follow-up.
I like that. Cam, it was a pleasure and a privilege to have you on my podcast. And let's make sure we stay in touch.
Likewise. Thanks so much, John. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening too. Great to have me. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.